Patrick Netherton Show, 11:30, The Tiger. He would be Rogers, I would be Patrick, and we are pleased to welcome in one of our favorites, New Orleans writer for the Advocate Times-Picayune. He is Luke Johnson, who is not nice enough to join us in amidst all of the craziness going on in New Orleans. Luke, how are you, man? You there?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, there we go. There we go. How you doing, man? Everything good?
Yeah. Woke up, the sun was still shining. Everybody's still here. We didn't all get raptured away.
Right.
Actually, it's real. It's the world can't exist without Sean Payton as the Saints head coach.
Hey, before we get into all the Sean Payton stuff, I do have to ask you, as a Northerner, by birth, so as it were, have you gotten soft yet? Like, if you went back to Wisconsin right now, would you hate it because of the weather? Like, are you a soft Southerner now? Or are you still rough and tough?
I have absolutely gotten soft.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like, it gets down to like 40 degrees here, and I'm just like, man, where's my parka?
Yeah.
Like that. Growing up, I was out, 40 degrees. That was like shorts weather, or at least short sleeves.
Yeah.
Right now I'm wearing a hoodie with a jacket over it, and it's 50 degrees outside. It doesn't make sense. I will say this though, like the New Orleans cold or the Louisiana cold, it doesn't have to be in New Orleans. It really does hit different, and that's like the humidity here.
It's a wet
makes
cold.
The cold so much worse. Like 40 feels like 25.
Yeah,
I swear.
No, I'm with you.
I'll go back home and it's cold, and I'm just like, this isn't too bad. But yeah, no, I'm a complete pansy now.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. And that's why everyone, when they come to the South, they very rarely, I don't feel like there's a lot of migrating north that goes on. I feel like pretty much everyone comes south and then just doesn't go back, unless you got like a summer home, back.
Yeah, I've got like family in like Arizona. Like my mom moved to like South Carolina for like a dozen years.
Yeah.
It's just like, everybody does definitely migrate.
I love it.
Unless there's like huge jobs or something like that.
Yeah.
Or you're a psycho who wants to live in New York.
Yeah, and nobody's that crazy. All right, Luke. So, kind of walk me through, what you were hearing. When did you maybe get wind that this was going to be real and not just Ian Rappaport reporting yet again that somebody's interested in Sean Payton and maybe he's interested in leaving? When did you sort of get wind that this had some legs to it?
First, I kind of really heard that it was kind of legit was Saturday. I'd heard that basically he just kind of cut off contact with the Saints. And he was kind of taking people couldn't really get in touch with him. They didn't know what he was thinking, and it was different than just like he needed a vacation time to take away. Yeah, typically after a season, like there's a lot of work that needs to be done right away, right? You got a bunch of meetings, you had exit meetings with players and staff. You kind of want to map out the immediate future for your franchise, and that just kind of didn't happen here. The season ended, and he did the exit interviews with the players, but he kind of just pieced out. 1 week in Cabo turned into 2 weeks in Cabo, and I think they kind of understood that this was different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this took anybody by complete surprise. I think obviously like he kind of informed them of how he was feeling, but I think it took on a little bit more of a real tenor, within the last 7 or 8 days or so.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because this is a guy who, he's hard to dislike if you're a Saints fan, but LSU fans, and I was just mentioning this earlier, the Saban comparisons to me are very real. Even though Sean Payton has not said, hey, I'm immediately going to coach, he's, leaving to go maybe be an analyst for a year or whatever. But we all kind of think he's getting back into coaching. Do you think ultimately he gets back in? And if so, do you think Saints fans maybe start treating him like LSU fans seem to treat Saban?
I don't know. I think that's, I think the only way that would really happen, in my opinion, is if he if he took a year off and then he found himself like coaching the Falcons or something like that.
Right. Right.
Back in the division where he's like literally immediately standing in their path, the way Alabama is with LSU. Yeah, I think if Sean took a year off and then the Cowboys have another failure in the playoffs or whatever that justifies Jerry Jones making a move there. Yeah, I mean that's the one that everybody looked at, right? Like they've been connected for so long, and Payton even referenced the Cowboys yesterday when he was talking. He didn't say Cowboys, but he said that team, and everybody knew who he was talking about. So I think that's the one where everybody's like, there could be something there, and Jerry Jones is the type of guy who's not afraid to take a big swing, he would pay Sean Payton a ton of money, and he would not be afraid to send a bunch of draft picks to the Saints for compensation, because that's part of the equation here too.
Right.
He's under contract for 3 more seasons, and even though he's not coaching, the Saints control his rights. So if he wants to coach anywhere else, and I'm assuming that's a likelihood, then the Saints would have to be compensated as an organization with draft picks, players, what have you. So all that said, while I think, and my gut tells me he'll be back coaching because that's just what his personality is, I think you look at there've been a lot of coaches who've been very successful and have been at the highest levels of their profession, and they stepped away and they were like, oh man, this is life. Bill Cowher, John Madden.
Cowher's
John
the number
Gruden.
one example I think of.
Yeah, I mean Cowher was younger than Payton was when he stepped away. I think Payton's 58, and Cowher was younger. Yeah, John Madden I think was in his early 40s when he stepped away, and those guys were just like, why would I put myself through that again? You could find you can still stay close to the game. Payton said he wants to do TV, and I believe him. And I think that'll ultimately be what he does this year. It's just it's going to be how much being away from the game itself and the game plan and the problem solving that he misses while he's away from that. And how much he misses being part of the locker room, because he said that that's the thing that he kind of held most dear from his time here.
Yeah, and that's it's hard to replicate. Luke, I'm kind of curious. I sort of offered the suggestion that, and this is obviously pure speculation, but if I'm NBC, seeing what the Manning cast had done, I'd hire Sean Payton right now. I'd stick him with Drew Brees, and I'd have them do an alternate broadcast of the Sunday night game every week where they just go X's and O's, like for football purists. I think there's a huge market for that. I think there's a lot of people that would love to hear kind of their take on it. I think it would be an easy thing for NBC to do. Now, obviously, you'd want him to do some studio and stuff like that, but this feels like an opportunity because the Manning cast has gotten very, hey, we're going to bring in Snoop Dogg and The Rock and all this stuff and kind of yuck it up. I think they could do a very serious football X's and O's separate broadcast, and I'd watch it before I'd watch Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, but I think you're absolutely right. I think everybody saw this year how popular the Manning cast was, and I don't think that's an easy thing to replicate, right? But if you take somebody who has a relationship with somebody like Sean does with Drew, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, personally. I don't know if it's the thing that would happen, but it's not like those guys have any shortage of money,
right?
and they could offer a very cushy job to Sean doing something in that type of role, and I think he'd be really good at it. He for as cantankerous and as prickly as he was with us sometimes, the Sean Payton you saw yesterday is the Sean Payton a lot of people know in the NFL, right? And a guy who's pretty gregarious, and he's a funny storyteller. I think he'd be really, really good on TV, especially when you take the competition element out of it. He's a very likable guy.
Well, just when you tell the world that idea, just give me credit for it. It's all I ask for. Talking to Luke Johnson for the Advocate, the Times-Picayune down in New Orleans. All right, so obviously the inevitable question is, where do the Saints go from here? Dennis Allen, who I refuse to call DA, I don't know why, it just bothers me. Dennis Allen, obviously the candidate in-house that seems to be the favorite. Kind of what are you hearing? Who do you think is beyond Dennis Allen? Do you think there is a chance that someone maybe from outside the organization, like an Aaron Glenn who's been there before, is there a chance they go outside the organization, or do you feel like it's sort of a fait accompli that they'll just move Dennis Allen up?
Well, so I can't say that I've been hearing anything yet because it's still so early in the process,
Mm-hmm.
and they've just the only thing that they've said is that we're gonna do a full thorough search. But if I were able to place any money on this legally, I would probably put it on Dennis Allen. I think he'd be my favorite, because I do think that they have something here with this culture that Payton's established, and something that they want to kind of have that continuity there. So actually, like just before you called, I just filed a thing with eight candidates who I think would kind of fit what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And of those 8, I think I'd probably personally only really consider 3, 4 maybe, but one of the candidates I put in there was Brian Flores, and I think he's probably going to have another job before the Saints are even able to really get this thing going.
Yeah.
So if it were me, I would I'd say the favorite for me would be Dennis Allen, right? Just because he's been with the organization for the last 7 years now, 12 out of the last 16 years he's been here. He was on Payton's very first staff. He's obviously an accomplished coach, and he's got the ear of the players and the team. He's done things with that defense that nobody was able to do with Sean Payton.
Yeah.
And he had that just abysmal run with the Raiders, but I don't really fault anybody for failing with the Raiders. That is such a dysfunctional organization. And I think he's learned a lot from that, and I think he's a very good coach. I think he'd be a great candidate.
Yeah.
But it really kind of depends on, for me, it depends on how they view this. Like, okay, do we want to have the continuity? Do we want to have somebody who's, going to basically run the same sort of program that Sean Payton did? Or, do we want to limit ourselves to that pool of candidates? Because you're really only talking about like 3, maybe 4 guys you could seriously consider for that. And that'd be like Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, who I think is a really good coach, but I don't know if he's like a head coach kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Glenn, who obviously was here for a long time with them and is kind of a rising star in the coaching ranks, and Joe Lombardi, who was here for a long time. Spent a lot of time with Drew Brees, a lot of time with Sean Payton in those meetings. And, his Chargers team, they didn't have a very good season this year, but they finished top 5 in both scoring and total offense. Like he's not a dummy. So out of those 4, I'd say that the 2 I'd really consider are Glenn and Dennis Allen. And then I do think it makes sense for them to look at Eric Bieniemy. For some reason that guy still hasn't gotten a coaching job.
We keep talking about that. There's something going on that we don't know about with Eric Bieniemy, because he should have had a job already.
Yeah, and he's become kind of the unfortunate poster child for the lack of diversity in the NFL coaching ranks. But everything everybody's ever said about Eric Bieniemy is that he deserves it. Andy Reid has just like shouted it from the mountaintops. He doesn't understand why he hasn't gotten that job, and maybe there is something going on that just nobody else understands. But the guy was born in New Orleans. He's got family in New Orleans. I talked to him at the Super Bowl a couple of years back. He sounds like he's from New Orleans. I think it'd be negligence on the Saints' part if they don't at least kick those tires.
Sure.
and see how he would fit. So I think out of all those guys, Dennis Allen would be first, and then followed closely after by Eric Bieniemy and Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, he at least he still has the perfect Chris Berman nickname going on for him, so that's good. Sleeping with Bieniemy. All right, last thing. This is I saw some random dude list the best available jobs in the NFL, and he had the Saints dead last behind the Texans, which is just laughable. But obviously there are still some issues. Salary cap every single year, yet the Saints find a way to get through it every single year. They need a quarterback. They need a number 1 wide receiver if Michael Thomas doesn't come back. Maybe one more O-lineman to kind of plug in there, assuming everyone else is healthy. When you look at not on the coaching side, but on the players' side, what do you see moving forward, and do you feel like this team still is in that window? Elite defense, offense was obviously very injured this year in the quarterback situation. Do you feel like with a piece or two here or there, they're still in that elite window?
Yeah, I mean, you can accuse me of bias if you want, but I think that list is absolutely bonkers. The Saints are the best open situation in the NFL, bar none. I mean, the salary cap thing is what it is. They're going to find a way out of that. They can get under that number and even get competitive to sign free agents without even cutting anybody this year. You know, that stuff that is just laughable. I hate that people keep bringing it up like it's this big negative thing about the Saints. They will figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if you could be a head coach walking into a situation, walking into a team where you got most of the team coming back and that team has won 58 games in the last 5 years, like that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen, right? They got stars at basically every position. Yeah, the only really big question on this roster is quarterback.
Yeah,
and that's frankly, it's going to be harder for them to figure it out now than it was 5 days ago, because 5 days ago they could be like, well, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, you're going to want to come here because you can play under Sean Payton,
mm-hmm.
and I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah,
you know, maybe if they go out and bring, you know, somebody like Eric Bieniemy in, and you know, somebody's like, well, I want to play for that guy. Yeah, sure. But it's a completely different equation when you're taking Sean Payton out of it. So, you know, I think that maybe kind of limits their options a little bit at the most important position. They got a big question to answer there.
Yeah, I mean, they were 9-8 with 4 different starting quarterbacks this year. I mean, that's insane. Like, that's just completely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the roster's stacked. It really is. Even this year, when I thought they'd taken a pretty significant talent drop off after having to cut a bunch of guys last offseason, they are in a very good position. A lot of guys playing at a very high level, and you know, I think their salary cap situation, while it looks bleak from the outside, I think they view it as very manageable.
All right, I said that was my last question, but I lied. This is my last question, and it's an unfair question. I will go ahead and tell you that immediately. This is not a fair question, so dodge it if you need to. Who's the starting quarterback game 1 next year?
Ooh, I'm still leaning towards them bringing back Jameis Winston.
Okay.
But I'm really not confident in that. You know, and obviously the regime change kind of changes that. Yeah. So it would not surprise me if, you know, the Saints are one of the teams who invest in a quarterback in this year's draft. Especially when you talk about the cap situation being what it is,
mm-hmm.
it's gonna continue being a thing that they have to massage every year just because of the way that they've approached managing their salary cap. So if you can get a player you like at the most important position on a rookie contract, that really helps solve a lot of those problems. So, you know, it would be Jameis or a rookie. And you know, out of those two, I'm probably kind of leaning towards Jameis right now, but that can change.
I got you. By the way, has anyone ever told you that your mugshot looks like Matthew Perry a little bit?
You'd be surprised at how many different people I get told that I look like.
Really? Well, you're kind of a chameleon in a lot of ways. Like, every picture I see of you looks a little different.
Yeah, well, that's probably it then.
Yeah,
I get Matthew Perry. I get some others that I would say, but they're very complimentary, and I feel really weird saying, hey, somebody tells me I look like this celebrity.
Hey, look, brother, I am not here for you to shy away from complimenting yourself. All right, that's what my show is all about, making everyone feel good and happy and laughing. So if you want to compliment yourself with who you get compared to, you go right ahead and do it. I will not stop you.
We'll just stop it at Matthew Perry.
Okay, that's good enough. Good enough. It just means you're really funny, is what it ultimately amounts to. Hey, brother, thank you so much for your time. I know y'all are kind of running around crazy down there with all the news and what's going on. Keep up the great work, and we look forward to having you on again, probably closer to football season.
Yeah, sounds great, Patrick. Thanks for having me on, man. It's always a pleasure.
All right, Luke Johnson, looks like Matthew Perry, also is one of the greats beat writer for the Saints for the Advocate and the Times-Picayune.